Welcome, welcome, folks. Hello and welcome. I am Linzi Garcia, Meadowlark's publicist and one of your hosts this evening. We have Arlice Davenport, the author of the wonderful book Everlasting, here tonight. And we're so grateful that you chose to spend a portion of your Friday night doing this with us. So thank you all for being here and thank you for supporting Arlice and Meadowlark Press. We have Tracy Simmons up here too, our publisher. She is the woman making all of this happen. So thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Arlice W. Davenport, author of Setting the Waves on Fire, which Meadowlark Press published about this time last year, October of last year.
October.
And now the author of Everlasting. He has been writing poems for more than 50 years, first spurred on after reading E.E. Cummings in a high school English class. Cummings' diction was kinetic, his use of language innovative and spry, springing from a deep need for vitality and creative freedom that could effortlessly twist punctuation, syntax, and spacing into new, barely recognizable forms. Early on, Davenport understood Cummings' radical, Dadaist poems as primarily surface play across the page. Now, he realizes that Cummings was searching for that primal language beyond modern American English. For the metaphor, this is that, the mystical energy of his poetic art. Today, Davenport aims at the same type of mystic poetry, after having had an epiphany in his 20s in the archaeological villa near Chichen Itza in Yucatan, Mexico. In the prose poem Awakening, he expresses the strength and lasting impact of that epiphany. The sky wavered orange and gray as dusk settled over the Mayan ruin, the Yucatan scrubland, the cooling tiles of the archaeological villa outside Chichen Itza, where I stayed. I sat poolside, contemplating the fading, fiery orb of the sun, musing on Kukulkan, the sacred cenote, the Mayans' murderous ball game, their majestic pyramid, and rows upon rows of chiseled skulls. When suddenly an epiphany engulfed me, I saw my life come together as a perfect whole, from beginning to end, and it showed only one thing, that I would be and remain a writer. My soul rose in ecstasy. I had never failed to feed it since. Davenport, a lifelong Wichitan, is the retired travel editor and books page editor for the Wichita Eagle newspaper. With his wife, Laura, he has explored Europe more than 30 times. They are still in awe of the journey. Arlice, congratulations, and thank you so much for the opportunity to publish you and for having us all here tonight. Cheers.
I want to thank everyone who's come tonight. I respect your presence because Friday night is a busy night for a lot of people. There's high school football, many other things. We want something different, something alive, vital, fresh. And so I hope it happens. I plan on it happening. So thank you all again. And a special thanks to Linzi, the ultimate organizer and editor. And then Tracy Simmons, she is the publisher extraordinaire.
My name is Roy Beckemeyer. I've known Arlice Davenport for quite a few years, not an extremely long time, but I was acquainted with him long before I met him because he's one of the reasons why I sort of kept Watermark Books in business for many years as a result of his wonderful reviews of autobiography and important nonfiction, literary fiction, and poetry that appeared Sundays in the Wichita Eagle. I spent a lot of time buying books of importance and just thoroughly enjoying them. And I was honored to have Arlice actually review my first poetry book in the Eagle on that page. So that was one of the highlights of my beginning my poetry career. I'm going to read Parting. At first, the poetry would not hold. Invisible, weightless, clinging to the tendrils of sorrow. No light could enter your writer's cave. No life, no dawn, no joy at the simple act of being. I called your name. Only the stillest voices answered. Only the wine stain on the table. Only the errant wish. We walk somnambulant through life, you said, startled by birds in trees, waking to the vision of mercy, wrapped in a mandala of orange and blue, rising to peaks of broken urns, dulled cobblestones. In Umbria, you filled the winding lanes with love. Landscape serenaded your muted passion. Elongated cedars cast shadows on the undulant green lawn. Tickets south fluttered in the wind. No passage, only connect. Yet the words did not hold. I see you in Assisi, packs carved into the eternal shrubbery. You laughed at Giotto's cartoons, took notes on St. Francis' prayers. Italy weightless, invisible, clinging to your nameless sorrow.
Thank you, Roy. That was an excellent reading.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's so exciting to see how many books we have on the shelf now, and then to have all these people at a book launch. It's very exciting. I am reading Unfinished Dialogue. Our wisdom is the wisdom of the desert, she said, of dry, empty places, of lethargy and longing, of renunciation and flight. I watched her walk into the blurry heat waves of the horizon, her carriage erect, arms raised like a saguaro cactus, prickly as a porcupine. She had no means of rescue, no parting from her environs, her faded countenance scrubbed clean by endless sand. Mediocrity will be our downfall, she cried, as she splayed a cobalt blue onto the dome above, spattered it with white, an orange peel for a moon, coyotes howl as serenade. We long for fullness, completion, the hidden way of happiness, yet we cannot admit our misery. We cannot admit the weakness that makes us dream of oasis, water gushing from stones, the evening primrose. Such hyperbole, I thought, so many wounded birds, so many buried serpents, the vision of unreason, the defiance of hope. How can we see ourselves clearly with this sty of helplessness in both eyes, with no radiating sun? She never looked back, advancing on the night, gazing up at the heavens, sensing no wisdom from above, alone with her silent witness of the dunes.
Thank you, Tracy. It's very nice.
Good evening. My name is Lois Carr. I am a retired librarian and a friend of Arlice and his wife, Laura. We met in church about 20 years ago, and soon after that, they introduced me to an old friend of theirs, a charming fellow named Norman. And that introduction went pretty well. And Norman and I will have been married 16 years next week. We've decided if we ever have a serious argument, we are, however, going to blame the Davenports. In the meantime, I'm happy to read Arlice's poem titled The Future. An island rises in the morning mist, uninhabited by all but the most frenetic birds. It is the future coming toward me, isolated and green, the shore splayed with tumbled stone. Ancient trees bend at the waist of gargantuan trunks. I take root in the encompassing. Shells litter the sand as the tide recedes. Winds roil the sky. All paths turn inward. I plunge into time, grasp the fading now. Waves cover my past, wash the coming light. Trees sway in the wind, schools of fish rise. Days lean into light. The future angles back.
I want to thank Lois Carr, especially. She's a longtime friend, very intelligent, a great editor. She edited my book, Everlasting. So I'll tip my hat. Robert, you can tip yours to her to say thank you, Lois, for reading and being part of this great event.
My name is Tom Schaefer. I've known Arlice way too long. I know his faults. I know his fantasies. He and I worked at the Wichita Eagle for a number of years, and he became not only a good friend, but an editor for the columns I wrote for the Eagle, which eventually made into a book form. And I was pleased to know that he had a major hand in helping me put that together. So I will be reading his poem, Spring. He indicated he'd like to have a little bit more liveliness and playfulness in this. Let me see what I can do with Spring, Arlice, and give a little verbal vitality.
I'm sure you'll do great.
Summer's promise, pools at the edge of the snow, a white medallion gliding on dull grasses, saucer-sized puddles bathe the earth, splashing petals and spatters of mud. I plant a precision-cut boot print next to a budding crocus. A burst of orange beams from the blackened soil. In my neighbor's field, a bobcat scurries past for sheer pleasure. Its satellite ears turn in every direction, detecting my wayward steps. I keep my distance, but marvel at the cat's movement away from, then toward the yellowed hedge row. I roam backward and forward, beside the ragged bank of snow, kneel in the oozing mud, write my new name at the beckoning of spring.
Oh, how I love this poem. I'm a big fan of laying in the grass and felt this was a very, I resonated with this poem. So thank you, Arlice, for the whole opportunity to work on this book together. It has been, it was one of our summer projects, and we're happy to see it come to fruition now. This is The Long Green Grass, inspired by this Van Morrison, A County Fair lyric. We laid out in the long green grass and never thought that it would pass. Sharpened blades of grass slice through evening shadows, which fragment like a cubist portrait. Our legs point toward the rising brook. Water gurgles over pebbles, streams into the dale, climbs the hillside, settles in a pool of diamond dragonflies. Their optical wings magnify the countryside's pure pleasures, unrepeatable cycles of new forms, new trees, new hillocks, new havens for pilgrims. Oh, how we lay in the morning dew, alone, save for fidgety rabbits who flicked by our sleepy heads, eyes closed to all but the spectacle within. Where streams flow into themselves, where the sun circles a field of daisies, turning heads toward the southwest sky, planting kernels in bare patches of soil. We have come late to our own renewal, to rejoining our source with full force, with fluid identities, with constant bleary eyes. When we lay together, that year's stars spilled across our torsos like a vein in the marble of Rilke's fractured sculpture of Apollo. You must change your life, of course. A true poem grows in a field of sharpened grass, surges toward the brook until it becomes the blade reflecting our fragmented faces.
So I'm Diane Awbry, and I can't remember when I first met Arlice, but we are related by marriage. That would be his marriage, not mine. Although we're practically related. He and my husband worked together at the Eagle, but Laura is my cousin. So Arlice actually doesn't know how much he helped me through graduate school. When we would read things that I didn't understand, I'd call him and have him explain it. So anyway, so I'm reading 2 poems, and I guess we're starting with The Waves. The solitary self seeks solace away from the anonymous they. An ordinary summer evening, humid and warm. Cicadas chatter. Dusk creeps ever westward. Blackened trees quiver in the breeze. The earth digs its own grave in the dark, lingers on strips of just planted sod. No current sweeps the dead underground, which succeeds all inhabitants. Blue-green waves wriggle toward the gulls. Basalt pyramids litter the beach. The sun gilds the thin horizon, paints pink, low-hanging clouds. Color spells opulence, an embarrassment of riches. Who would steal them belongs to the backwater they, who long to see in black and white, to choose an identity of innocuous gray. Moths burn. Light illumines, obscures the ground of being. Descent mimics ascent, pure movement toward the beyond. Clarity rings the gong of recognition. Know thyself. Yes, but which self knows? Which is known? There is only one mind, practical, hardworking, seeking comfort from corruption. Crabs feed on flopsum. Sandy footsteps vanish in errant waves. This one is fun too. I like the way you've got it situated on the screen. That is exactly right. So this is called To-Do List. And I'm trying to be as lively as I can, but after all, it is a list. Okay. So to sift the seeds of ruin beneath an ancient sun, to breathe the warmth of rain that melts the mounded snow, to count the loss of time with echoes faint and still, to woo a guarded love under a cynic sky, to comfort the aggrieved with weary words of pain, to write an epic poem without meter or rhyme, to boost my sense of joy, then play a losing hand, to dwell in inwardness while others stone my soul, to ask for nothing real but linger in despair, to trim the cacti's spines and let the clippers sag, to praise the feudal rain while dying as a serf, to say all seek for thee in vast vacant deserts, to lift the builder's crane with opposable thumbs, to turn Rothko's works back to figurative art, to see angles at night, Euclid behind the eye, to call out in distress, then settle for handshakes, to embrace the absurd, ignore Camus the rebel, to pray that art can save, only to watch words die, to champion drama as the curtain crumples, to take a final bow blinded by the footlights.
Great work. Great. I loved it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, we've had a good host of readers so far. And now we're back to Roy, who wanted us to read this poem. And this is about Rothko too, which I mentioned him in the last poem. And this is a Rothko painting as a slide. So I will let Roy take it away.
The title of this poem is Ascendancy of Spirit. 1. I crawl across the shimmering fault lines that wall off Rothko's color fields, blithely skimming the edges, feathered toward eternity, deftly darting across the hairline abyss that wavers from orange to yellow and back again. No map charts this territory, self-referential, self-renewing, self-examined, until the paints dry up and the artist's hand aches from aesthetic excess. 2. Saturated in soulful hues, I balance like a ballet dancer, on point, at the core of each irregular rectangle, brushing up against divisions in the color wheel that whirl around the expressionist palette, united only by the suicidal willfulness of a man who has exhausted all callings, resisting the urge to paint only black, caving in on itself, carving out the brush's final resting place, soul within soul. 3. Rothko contains millions. He breathes life into the inchoate cosmos, even as he seduces death. He siphons the Big Bang into transcendental planes of primal hues, haloed by an absence so intense it bursts into presence. We find no streams of consciousness seeping through his canvases, only an ascendancy of spirit into the dying void.
Well, first of all, here I am following Roy Beckemeyer again. Roy, it seems like every program we're on together, I'm always following you. So, Arlice, I met Arlice when he joined Kansas Authors Club. I knew him from the books page in the Eagle before that, and always enjoyed his reviews. I had the pleasure of working with Arlice on his first book in sequencing the poem order. And so I got familiar with his poetry from doing that and just fell in love with it. And so far this book is up to Arlice's standards. I'm doing 2 poems here. The first one is titled Unworldly. And you have to pardon my voice. It's a problem with vocal cords. A white hot orb gilds the naked trees, singes the sky. Heat rises from the earth, dissipates through punctures in the ozone. Those who disbelieve in global warming feel sweat sopping their brow, eyes stinging with salt. Nothing to do with our polluted synergies, only Gaia's corrective. My compass points neither near here nor there. Stars radiate light, ciphers of systems of atoms whirling toward dark matter. We wish upon them, then puzzle why they didn't disappear. Distance deceives us. It creeps closer than our breath. We cannot measure it immersed in ourselves. True north exists only for those south, stuck nearer the equator than the Antarctic Ocean. Aurora Borealis beckons ever northward, but the dancing hues are only nature's watercolors running off paper into the depth of night. It covers us with a dark blanket, comforting yet frightening. Our faults undisclosed, our strengths unseen. The world is not our stage. We strut upon it looking for exit stage right. We thrive in artifice, our reflection the imprimatur of the real. Stars, sun, The buckling earth gather no momentum in defining who we are, alienated from the law of the wild, fixated on the destitution of morality. War trumps famine because the starving die. Habitats no longer stand. Language chokes on its own spittle. It cannot speak the absurdity of the ideal. We pose as warriors of the good, our conscience seared by untruth. We fight for freedom only to tie ourselves in knots of laws. We see the whites of our own eyes. They are as porous as the desert sand. We sift them into the unworldly.
Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that. This poem might have a few negative feelings in it, but it tries to express an existential truth. So I hope you can all appreciate that.
This one is titled Immersed in Desert, a Piece of Sky. One. A moment in the morning, and our minds are one. We think the same thoughts, desire the same desires, will the same will. 2. Neptune pulls himself up from the sea, gaining traction with his trident. He controls the waves, yet they hold him down like a captive crab. 3. Light beaming flat through the window, you cradle yourself as if crying. No darkness looms, only lovely, pure rays baptizing your astonished eyes with joy. 4. We rise to the other world as jonquils rise through stones. Will each petal resurrect, each green stem? A bird distracts and the imagery blips away. 5. Long lopes through the desert, endless jaunts of monochromatic loneliness. The soul feeds off nothing, but must lean on something, substance formed from the vital source. 6. The blanket of night sprawls before us, the quandary of burial, a piece of sky. Soil rises to meet you. Everything rises like the sweet smoke of incense. Omnipresent, it beckons you to savor, then dream. 7. An old man, a bowl of coins. He buys nothing but time, which cannot be bought. He buys new life, but it does not take cash. Beg your way into heaven. A wedding feast awaits. Immersed in desert, a piece of sky.
Great, thank you so much. I know that's kind of a long poem, 7 sections, but you did a great job on that.
Thank you, Arlice. Great poem. Love it.
Thank you. Holy cow, it's my turn. All right, I'm going to read from my book. Here's the book. You need to get your own copy ASAP. I'm joking, but I'd appreciate it if you did. I have 4 poems. They all reveal themes of the book. They are sort of a mini book, MINI. The last one I read is probably my favorite from the whole book, but here we go with the title poem, Everlasting. I slogged through brackish waters. Your voice winnows on the wind, each word plucked from an eagle's plumage, each quill elliptical and tattooed, each hieroglyph bleached, clean by the sun. Love buries the future deep within its manicured strata of sod, hedges trimmed as Greek pillars, soft edges peeling away green foliage until only Aphrodite's ruined temple remains. Time foists on us no favors, the present hanging midair like a hummingbird, skittish to flit into the past, suckled by nectar of bell-shaped flowers, spilling beveled raindrops on the earth. Runes rise above the firmament, chiseled teeth without food, immune to sacred mysteries, immersed in ancient history, they seed the everlasting. Frayed feathers settle on berms, brackish waters cleanse the sky. Everlasting. Now I will go to my second poem, which I believe is an Italy poem. I have a couple in here. Lucca, Italy is a great city to visit. You can see from this image just what you would see by wandering its narrow streets. The epigram for this poem comes from T.S. Eliot, 4 quartets. What I think is his best book. It outweighs even The Wasteland in profundity. Eliot says, the only wisdom we can hope to acquire is the wisdom of humility. Humility is endless. Depths of Lucca. Chest deep in the shadows of the portico, I sip my champagne, use the demi-tasse spoon to break the crust of the flan. The flavor floats on my tongue, evaporates like dew, memories linger for days. Hip deep in the sorrows of reckless love, I smooth my shirt, straighten my collar to shatter the image of the maligned, unkempt, no longer linked to the other. I stir my cold coffee, furrow into the past. Knee deep in the petty cares of this world, I dig the grave for my riches, toss clods of earth on the casket. The aroma penetrates the hubris of the poet, the humility of the wise. From the magnolia tree, pink sweetness rises. Now you may be surprised to learn that Italy does indeed have magnolia trees. It's not just a feature of the deep south here. The next poem is also an Italy poem, Orvieto. This photograph was taken by Laura on our visit to Umbria and Tuscany. This cathedral is magnificent, not only in its design, but in its height, its majesty, it towers over you, and inside it's just a delight. It's a Duomo, as Italians say. So here's the poem. Orvieto, 1. Below the towering facade of the cathedral, you rummage through a cache of signs. Humility feeds the pilgrim's progress. Even the mammoth Gothic columns ignite. Into the Piazza del Duomo, gladiolus breathe, sweet scent of the dead spared desecration. Freed from the Signorile frescoes in San Brizio Chapel, Satan primps like a Dostoevskian dandy, low currents of your voice, the melancholy of Christ. 3. We live by longing, a vocation of desire that circles the crypt. What is left but the mystery of the underworld, the overworld, the village fountains flowing with light? Beauty resides beyond being, a drunken star, an extravagant river that flows through the nave into the hills. No word about the desert, dust, or ash, only La Vita Nuova. This is entitled Berries. 1. In the far corner of the grove, night hurtles past the stars, spews a black light to blank out shadows. You say, this is the way the world ends. Even the touch of lovers does not last. It leads only to an arousal we share, with the sheltering sky. 2. I watch you clip berries to burnish the jewels in your crown. You can't count the spaces left by hand-cut stones. How hard they seem against the crimson globes. How pale when pressed next to living flesh. Eros hangs in the air above low-lying limbs. To grasp his desire means another tree shall break into blossom. 3. I sense the joy as you gather the rest of the harvest. Heaps of stubble veil the view. Leaves simmer on orange embers, nursing the flames of nature's secret. Nothing is lost, though everything wanders. 4. You crush the berries in a wooden bowl. We stir the juices, dip our fingers deep into the swirl, write haiku on each other's palms. Night streaks by, shadows flee. In the depths of darkness, we feel the color of light. Oh, how our art will grow to match the scale of our love. That is berries. And I want to make one further comment. The line in this poem that says, another tree shall break into blossom, is taken from a magnificent poem by James Wright, an American poet who is probably underappreciated by many.
Thank you, Arlice, and great job reading. I always love hearing the poets' poems in their own voice.
Thank you.
It gives it a different type of life. To all of the lives we've ever celebrated, this poem is Bones. It is the last poem of the book, and I feel very honored to be able to read it. I sit cross-legged in the darkness of my cave of solitude. I have fought hard for this lonely life. To any who come after, my scattered bones will be a fiery treasure. Thank you, Arlice.
Thank you. That was a nice reading and a very good poem to end the book and this reading of my poems.
Now we open it to all of you. If you have any questions or comments for Arlice, now is the time.
A nice comment from Robert Dean. It says, great stuff, Arlice. He can't wait to get the book, and he applauded all the readers. So great for the readers. Let's hear it for them. And isn't it so much more fun to have a multitude of readers rather than me droning on about Italy and death? The readers bring life to it, and I really appreciate that.
Arlice, I know you comments and the influence that really started you on your poetic journey. Are there other places along the way, or I should say other poets along the way that kind of steered you in a new direction or opened your eyes in ways you never thought of before?
Rilke is great. There's so many poets. There are romantic poets, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Shelley. I'm sure I'm leaving out others. They inspire me. I like all the moderns, the European moderns, the American moderns. The modernist movement, I think, resulted in really rich poetry. T.S. Eliot, William Carlos Williams. I could go on. But yeah, there's a whole host, a whole chorus of poets that I read and am inspired by. So yeah, there are a lot. I can't mention them all, but Rilke certainly is at the top. Also, the modern Greek poets, Cavafy, Sepphoris, Elytus, both the last two Nobel laureates. Modern Greek poets are some of the best poets writing, in my opinion. I read them over and over, Cavafy especially, despite his quirks and eccentricities. He writes the best history poems I've read. So there's a whole host. And I keep discovering new poets and keep reading every day. So the list will continue to grow. So thanks for asking that. I love to plug other poets besides my own work. So there are a lot of great poets out there, and I hope they're being taught. Kevin and others who are teaching, Diane, I hope you're teaching someone besides just Shakespeare. Nothing against Shakespeare, but there is a whole world of poetry to be taught, and it broadens all of our horizons. And I say poetry is good for the soul. That's why you need to read it. It enriches your soul. Some people may not believe in a soul these days. It's sort of a cliche to many people, but it's a reality. You call it the self, the soul, whatever. Poetry touches it, builds it up, and inspires. So that's my long, rambling answer, Tom. I think one thing should be said. My book is the debut book of Meadowlark's Poetry Press, a new project just started. I'm privileged and honored to be able to publish the first book in that press. I know many great poets are coming after me. I've seen their names and even their books. So Meadowlark Books and Tracy and Linzi need to be applauded over and over. And so I give them my applause. Once again, thank you so much.
When I was helping Arlice with the first book, getting the sequencing done, he told me, and Arlice, correct me if I'm misremembering here, but he told me that he had written over the course of the 50 years or so, at least 800 poems. Is that correct, Arlice?
That's correct. I have more than that, but I'm not going to give you the number. It will seem excessive to a lot of people, but that's true. I have much more than 800 poems now. So plenty of poems to mine for publication if it seems pertinent and the right time to do it. I want to thank you for your help again on setting the waves on fire. You did an excellent job working that, and it really made the book sing. So thank you, Bob.
I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to do it. And that means a lot more Arlice Davenport books yet to come, hopefully.
These poems specifically, have you written all of these since Setting the Waves on Fire was published, or have you pulled from those 800 to build this collection?
Actually, I've written all these poems in about 8 months after Setting the Waves on Fire. And if you go to my website, inpraiseofpoetry.com, you'll see there are about 50 new ones there. Not quite 50. I keep writing and writing. Some are good, some need to be buried, but others I think could make a good book. All right, I have a benediction. No, I'm kidding. I think every person needs a creative outlet. I think creativity is inherent in the human personality. A lot of people never find that outlet for a lot of historical, sociological reasons. But poetry has been a creative outlet, and it has brought me joy, ecstasy, so many great things. And I want to thank Laura for putting up with all of my quirks and my obsession with correctness and the right word, le mot juste, as Flaubert put it. And I want to say one more thing, which may surprise the poets who are out there. But I think the best advice or the best description about creative writing comes from Ernest Hemingway in his posthumous book, A Movable Feast. I know my friend Norman Carr took that book and actually walked the streets of Paris following Hemingway's footsteps. But Hemingway says this, on the page, and this applies to poetry, what you read, what you encounter is just the tip of an iceberg. Below the surface of the page is the foundation reputation for everything that is written or said. And if a poem succeeds, then you will sense the other 90% of meaning that informs what is on the page. And so I would just encourage everyone to look at reading that way, that you will find much more than is just on the surface. And writers, when you write, know that there is a deeper substance and meaning to the words put on the page. They are finite on the page, but they are infinite in significance. So that's my little sermon. I'll spare you a benediction. But I want to thank everyone again. It's great to have support. It's great to celebrate things like this, especially in the times we live in. This is a joyful moment, and I'm glad everyone could share it. So thanks again, and I hope you all have a good night. And I hope you all buy a copy of the book.